I think my girlfriend is only with me because she can't be with her best friend. Am I cooked? Sorry for the long post. I didn't realize how much I had to say until I got it all typed out. Thanks in advance to anyone who reads all this. I, 29M, have been with my girlfriend, Jordan, 26F, for a little over 2 years. We live together and have 2 cats. Up until this weekend, I genuinely thought everything was perfect in our relationship, which I know is what everyone says in these posts, but I really was thinking about asking her to marry me sometime in the next year. We don't ever argue. Jordan is very sweet and easygoing, and we usually just mesh well on everything. Honestly, if everything in our relationship hadn't been so good up until now, I probably would have just broken up with her this weekend. But because things have truly been so perfect, I'm not sure if I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion about what to do, simply because my feelings were hurt. The other person who's important in this story is Jordan's friend, Mark, 26M. She's known Mark her whole life because they both grew up in the same small religious community. Jordan isn't part of that religion anymore. She decided to leave the church when she was, I think, 19, and moved to the state where we live now. Mark still practices the religion and apparently takes it really seriously. I'm told he now works for the church back in Jordan's hometown. Also, as far as I know, Mark is the only person from the religious community that Jordan still talks to, besides her parents, which I'm mentioning because I now think it could be a red flag. On Saturday, I met Mark for the first time because he was in our city, and Jordan wanted us all to have dinner together. At this point, I want to say, I will admit that when we were first dating and I found out Jordan had a best friend who was a guy, I didn't really like it, especially because it seemed like they were on FaceTime with each other a lot. But since he was a childhood friend and they mostly didn't see each other in person, I trusted Jordan that Mark was only a friend, didn't let it bother me, and eventually got over it. So when we were going to dinner, I wasn't jealous or suspicious of Mark at all. If anything, I was somewhat excited to finally meet him since I've been hearing about him for 2 years. But then the way Jordan and Mark acted at dinner convinced me there's something going on between them beyond just being best friends. I honestly don't even know how to describe it except to say I've never seen 2 people act more obviously like they were in love. They literally wouldn't stop touching each other. They were constantly touching each other's arms and shoulders, and at some points, they were even holding hands. They completely left me out of the conversation, laughing about inside jokes. Every time they'd laugh, they'd put their foreheads together, or that's when they'd be holding hands. And then there was the way they were looking at each other. It made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. It wasn't how anyone would look at somebody they're supposedly just friends with. I'm 100% sure that every stranger looking at our table thought Jordan and Mark were the couple and that I was her brother or something. I felt like a third wheel the whole time, and Jordan didn't even notice how awkward she was making it for me because she was way too focused on Mark and all the attention she was getting from him. That's really not like Jordan at all. Usually, she's much more considerate and would notice immediately if I wasn't having a good time or if she was accidentally being rude and excluding someone at the table. It was genuinely jarring to sit there with her and Mark and feel like I didn't know my girlfriend at all. It was like he turned her into a completely different person who didn't even care that I was alive. Finally, at one point, when Jordan got up to go to the bathroom, I said to Mark, "So are you into my girl, or what's going on here?" Mark, "Nothing's going on at all. That ship sailed a long time ago." Me, "What does that mean? Did you guys date at some point?" Mark, "No, we never did. And then when she left the church, we both knew it meant we were never going to. We've accepted being in each other's lives as friends. There's nothing else going on at all." Me, "That makes it sound like the only reason you're not together is because she left the church." All Mark did was shrug. Me, "Well, what if she came back to the church? Would you marry her?" Mark, "Oh, she's not going to do that. You might as well ask what would happen if a bicycle had 6 tires." Then, when Jordan came back to the table, Mark said to her, "Op wants to know if we'd be married if you weren't a godless heathen." Jordan, "Why, did you two call your mom while I was gone?" Then she and Mark both just laughed about it and changed the subject. Because of dinner, that conversation, and everything else I've written in this post, I really feel like Jordan and Mark are in love with each other and not just best friends, as they say. The only reason they aren't together is because they can't compromise on their religion. I think Jordan assumes that because she's okay with that decision, I should be okay with being her second choice. Meanwhile, I believe she secretly wants to be with Mark. That makes me think I should obviously have self-respect and break up with her because I shouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would rather be with somebody else. The problem is that our relationship has been so perfect, and Jordan has always treated me so well except for this one night. The only time she's ever acted like this was when Mark was around in person. Normally, even when she's talking to him frequently, she's never made me feel this way. So, on the one hand, I wonder if it doesn't matter what Jordan's feelings are for Mark. As long as he isn't physically around, it doesn't seem to affect our relationship. Maybe I just need to cool off and go back to trusting her that they are indeed only friends, even if it seems true they have complicated feelings for each other. Or should I just end things? Update 2 days later. I talked to Jordan on Wednesday night. When we spoke, I decided to take the main piece of advice I got from everyone, to start by telling Jordan that my feelings were hurt by the way she treated me at dinner with Mark, and then see how the conversation unfolded. It turned into a very long talk, so I don't want to try to remember exact quotes and get them wrong, but here are the important points. I repeated to Jordan some of what I wrote in the post and explained that I felt excluded by her and Mark, especially because they were being overly touchy-feely with each other to the point that it made me uncomfortable. Jordan seemed surprised, like she hadn't even noticed that she and Mark were touching each other that much. Then, after thinking about it, she said I was right and apologized. She explained that Mark is always really touchy with everybody, not just her. I asked and that she hadn't even thought about it, but she wished I would have said something at the time because she hadn't realized they were being that obnoxious. I said that was part of what bothered me because I thought she would have normally noticed something like that, but she was acting so differently around Mark, not paying attention to anything else, including how I was feeling. I told her it honestly made me question which one of us she cared about more, or if she cared about him as more than just a friend. Jordan apologized further and said she could understand why it would look that way to me. She assured me that she loves me and cares more about me than anyone else in the world, and she didn't mean to act that way or make me feel that way. She said she was trying not to make Mark feel like a third wheel as a single guy out with a couple, but it backfired and made me feel like the third wheel instead, which wasn't her intention. After that, Jordan explained a lot about her history with Mark. She admitted that she cares about him more than just a typical friend but insisted it's not in a romantic way. She said that's why she always refers to him as her best friend rather than just her friend. She mentioned that she would use the phrase "he's like my brother" if not for the fact that she once had an actual brother, rest in peace, so she avoids using that phrasing for anyone else. According to Jordan, the main thing that made her and Mark so close is that when she was 17, she tried to unalive herself. At that time, everyone else in the community stopped talking to her, and Mark was the only person who didn't. For the next couple of years until she moved, he was literally her only friend. She said he checked on her every single day to make sure she stayed alive, which is when they got into the habit of talking on the phone so much. She also mentioned that during this time, Mark's parents thought they were dating and made a big deal about how they shouldn't be. That's why she made that remark during dinner. Apparently, calling Jordan a godless heathen is something Mark's mom actually said. I told Jordan that Mark had basically said to me he thought the two of them would be married if she had stayed in the church, and I asked if she thinks Mark might be in love with her even if she doesn't feel the same way. She said definitely not, and I don't think she was being dishonest. I really don't agree with her, but I believe she genuinely thinks Mark isn't interested in her in any way beyond friendship. From her perspective, she thinks they might have gotten married if she'd never left the church or moved, but it would have been more due to peer pressure than anything else, and she doesn't think it would have been a good thing. She believes Mark was just being honest about his thoughts and assumes he's imagining a scenario where she'd be the perfect church wife, so there'd be no reason they wouldn't make a good couple. The big thing that happened at the end of the conversation is that Jordan told me Mark is coming back through our city on his way home from this trip. She said she was going to invite him to hang out with the two of us again, but if I'm uncomfortable with him around, she won't ask him. A lot of people were saying that if she didn't offer to cut contact with him or reduce their communication, it meant she valued him over me. However, the fact that she brought up on her own that she wouldn't invite him to dinner with us again if I didn't want her to seemed like a really good sign. Based on everything she said, I understand why she didn't offer to stop being friends with him altogether, and I wouldn't expect her to after what she told me about what happened when she was a teenager. I've decided to take Jordan at her word that although she and Mark are unusually close, it's for the reasons she explained and not because she's in love with him. The fact that she was immediately apologetic instead of defensive was encouraging, and her explanation made sense to me. I don't necessarily trust Mark, but I do think I can trust Jordan. I'll be keeping an eye out to see if she continues talking to him as much as she used to or if anything changes. I'm not going to be controlling and tell her she can't talk to him or that she needs to reduce their communication, but I want to see if addressing all of this with her causes her to act differently. I'm kind of hoping she might realize on her own that the way Mark acts toward her does seem like he likes her as more than a friend now that I've brought it up. But I'm not sure. Things might just go back to exactly how they were before, and I won't know if anything has actually changed until the next time Mark is around in person. Either way, I don't think this is something I should keep worrying about until it happens.